So let's start. My talk is about how to contribute to openSUSE or how you can contribute to openSUSE. The background for this is that actually, while I'm SUSE employee, I work for SUSE for like 8 or 9 years already. I'm not actually, my primary job is not really related to openSUSE. It's something slightly different. However, a couple of years ago, I was doing something with openSUSE. Maybe I was not even using openSUSE because there was something not working for me in openSUSE. And what I was told when I was complaining actually about something not working is that I should try to fix it myself, which I actually learned how to do and figured out it's pretty fun to fix things for yourself. You can also fix things for other people's, and ever since that I'm involved in openSUSE. I'm actually involved in many develop projects, mostly in packaging. Sometimes I'm also helping with some local conferences here in Czech Republic and or local booths in Czech Republic. And yeah, I'm doing it for like 5 or 6 years, and it's so far it's pretty okay. So that gets me to why contribute. The question why you should contribute. It's you can feel good about yourself. You can actually solve your issues. You can motivate others to contribute, and thus sometimes solve your issues or whatever is burning you, which is pretty nice. And as I was saying, you can also have a lot of fun while doing stuff in open source communities. Well, not always. Sometimes not always things are fun, but in general, I would say it's pretty rewarding and fun experience to have and to do. So, what kind of I was thinking of what various things people can do that would count as a contributions in openSUSE, apart from the packaging, to which I will get as well. But one of the easiest ways to help with the distribution with the Linux project, Linux distribution, is actually testing and reporting issues. Obviously, issues go to Bugzilla, and we try to, or usually maintainers of the corresponding components are trying to help you. Well, sometimes yes, sometimes no. But what is important when you are testing something is that preferably you provide a bug report in the Bugzilla. Let me briefly switch to web browser. And yeah, this is our Bugzilla where you can report issues just by creating account there and clicking new. We actually have a very nice description in our openSUSE wiki or openSUSE documentation how you should submit bug report, how a proper bug report should look. This is a very extensive list how to report a GCC bug, how to report a GNOME bug, KD bug, kernel bug, and so on, and so forth and so back. And it's actually pretty good if you report a bug that contains necessary information for someone to fix it and or to reproduce the problem or something like this. What happens when people try to report bugs or find some issues and they are not really experienced with what to do with the situation is that sometimes I mean, if you start with the description, something is not working and that's the end of information that you are providing, it usually is very difficult to do something about it unless the maintainer or developer of some component is experiencing the same issue. It's very limited on of what you can. He's very limited what he can do to help you. So it's really desirable to provide a good description of the issues, to provide some details on how to reproduce the issue, and even though have realistic expectations. A lot of people that are fixing or working on issues that you report are members of community as you are and are doing things in their own free time. So you can't expect that they will give you immediate reply and the fix will come up immediately, even if you provide a very good description. As openSUSE is at least partially community-based distribution, and even the SUSE components, there are some business priorities by SUSE. Have let's say reasonable expectations. I don't I don't want to discourage people from reporting issues. Actually, quite the opposite. I'm trying to encourage. But what is important also is to have provided bug reports that are of some quality level. And if you put yourself into the shoes of the maintainer of some component and you are receiving just complaints that something is not working without any details and without any without any let's say reasonable information, or if you get a bug report and immediately 12 hours later you get a question that's like, so what's the status? It's not really nice experience for the other side as well. However, as I'm saying, report bugs and yeah. Let me switch back to back to
Martin, you have some questions.
yes.
Specific. Yeah, go for it. Should I read it for you?
Yeah, I'm reading it right now. Sure, providing a bug report that is provided in other Bugzilla or linking it into a Bugzilla would definitely be more than enough. That should uh, be enough. It's not necessary. We don't really need to use our Bugzilla. I was just using it as an let's say example of where you can put bugs. Like, but if you, let's say that you encounter issue with some dependencies of some package, then obviously this is something that goes into openSUSE Bugzilla. If you encounter issues that are upstream specific, you can just link the bug or something, or ask someone and provide them with the link to the bug that is reported somewhere else. That's perfectly okay. So let's go back to sharing of presentation. So apart from testing, what is actually a very good way to help your fellow users is various translations or localizations. We actually have a community that is based around the world. A lot of people that are not necessarily very vocal in the commonly used English channels, and they are using openSUSE, and they very often rely on openSUSE being translated to their language. So we have this Weblate. I'm not sure if you are familiar with Weblate. Weblate is a translation tool, and we have our own openSUSE Weblate for easy translation. Let me jump there. Let's hope that it will be faster this time. Yes. So here in openSUSE Weblate for translations, you can see there is a dashboard. It's not the fastest thing, but yeah, let's leave it. And we have a list of languages, and you can see the level of, or the progress of the translation. So for example, we can actually see that the Armenian has a very good translation level. 95% of the strings available, where string is a text string that is extracted from something that's from some system software that is allowing translation, or even text like release notes or stuff like this is translated. Let's check the Armenian. We will see the funky alphabet there, hopefully. No, maybe this is too funky. Bengali is pretty much translated. Bosnian, Breton, Bulgarian. Let's see if Weblate is working actually now today. I'm not sure if there was some some updates unfortunately recently, so I can't show you more details in Weblate, but believe me, it usually actually works. So let's go back to presentation. Another thing you can help your fellow users. I can see that there is something. Yeah, let's get back to it later. Another thing, and another way to help your fellow users or to contribute to community is to update the documentation. We actually, the state of documentation in openSUSE can be somehow confusing, because we have wiki that is being, there is actually community move to update the documentation, but there are some major main sources of documentation such as doc openSUSE and openSUSE Wikipedia, openSUSE Wiki. There are plenty of others actually. There are some pieces of documentation that are localized in local sites as well. But usually, if you have some knowledge or insight on how to do something that is not happening by default, you have some corner case setup or something like this, and you want to share it with people, the documentation is obviously a place to go. And if it helps somebody, then, well, I mean, remember when you were in some issues and you relied on someone else's documentation or someone else's article or whatever that helped you, so you can give back to community by updating documentation as well. Let's quickly jump there. So openSUSE documentation for lib 15.3 is here, and a single HTML. Let's see how it loads. It seems to be pretty comprehensive actually. And at our wiki, there is again a lot of documentation about not only the distribution itself, but about tools that are around or helping with the distribution, such as OpenQA or Open Build Service, even OSEM for event management, although I have to admit that I'm a bit skeptical about the usage of this tool, but yeah. So let's go back to
Actually, if I may,
yeah, sure.
I, Martin? So the openSUSE wiki is probably the documentation source which content-wise, not how we build this, the docs, but content-wise could need the most help, because there's so many outdated pages, and any help is welcome. I believe there were also some sprints. I'm not sure if it was part of marketing sprints to refresh some of the pages, but yeah, if you actually want to contribute and you don't feel like maybe coding is the way, this would be something that a lot of people will appreciate.
And actually, to follow up on what Lubos was saying, is you don't actually need to write articles. Sometimes the deleting of old articles can be
Exactly
equally helpful. So you don't have to be a technical writer, or you don't, even if you don't feel like writing stuff, you can just check that something is really horribly outdated and just mark it for deletion or delete it.
Very easy example. Imagine that you have maybe landing page translated to a language that was not, and the page was not touched like for 5 years, but you still have this outdated information. Easier it's to delete it. Not everybody can read it, so I would probably not be able to say whether the Armenian pages. Like you can probably guess digits, but whether it's up to date or not. And if it's not, then just keep the English one and do not confuse people. So yeah, clean up and refresh. That's what we are looking for.
And another way to help users is we have a plenty of actually community communication channels like forums, openSUSE. We have a Discord, we have IRC on formerly on Freenode. Well, maybe there is still something on Freenode, but nowadays on LiberaChat as well. We have stuff like Reddit with subreddit openSUSE and Telegram groups and stuff. Plenty of both international or English-based and local language-based channels where sometimes newbies are coming and asking questions, and you can, if you know something, you can help them. If you don't know, you can at least point them to some direction where they might find someone who will actually help them and so on. This is again, this is not something that is always that as visible as, for example, code contributions, but it is equally helpful if you are helping others, assuming that you are helping others and not misdirecting them. But I hope that in most cases people are actually helping. And yeah, this is, and we have this Discord is actually, if someone is not, yeah, Luboš?
It's just one thing that came to my mind because I don't see it written here. But like what I'm hearing every single time in bar is that people want to do podcasts. And I have no overview of how many we have them, but like this is something that at least in US is kind of very in right now, and people kind of look for it. So if that's also one channel that you may want to check if there's something about openSUSE. I've seen a lot of reviews in radio and so on. So I was ignoring podcasts for a long time, but it seems like I cannot anymore because people are demanding it.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That actually never
Yep.
crossed my mind, but
Exactly, exactly.
yeah,
Like, and now
that's
I hear
clever.
about it like every day, basically.
Yeah, that's really, wow, that's really interesting. Yeah, well, have to check if we have some or if someone is asking. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just lowering hand.
Yeah. And yeah, for those who are not comfortable with using Discord, it's bridged with Matrix, so you don't have to use Discord. You can use whatever Matrix client suits you. Bridging mostly works, so it's okay. With the IRC, there might be a limitation of people that are on IRC. I, for myself, have to say that I have stopped using IRC at all, like a couple of years ago, and yeah, I'm quite happy with it. So if someone wants to reach me, then you have to use Discord or email or some other ways of communication. Another way to contribute that is somehow more advanced is you can actually maintain or not even maintain, not even take maintenance, but contribute to packages. You can just update some package, submit request with a fix for some trivial issue that you encounter, or yeah, that's really, it's easier than it look in most cases. Like we have built openSUSE.org, where is openSUSE is being developed, and you can easily check the stuff that is there. Branch packages there. You can use it from a lot of things are usable from a web page. Actually, you can do stuff like see what is being submitted and so on. You can do, and if you are not submitting something and you are just in the position of maintainer of the devel project, you can just at least review the changes that others are doing and so on. So there's plenty of activities or things that you can do to contribute here. For example, I here have some submit request that has been waiting for 6 days for me. Huh, that's weird. I haven't seen it. Okay, let's quickly approve it before someone complains. This was obviously very good change, so I'm absolutely okay with accepting it. And let's quickly check what other things I can yes. Yes, let's keep it for later. Well, let's decline it right away. It's pretty old, so not clutter the spec file. My intention as a package maintainer, and maybe this guy will now think that I'm asshole, but it's not to make things overly complicated. And yeah, so this is another thing. And what can we also do to contribute to open source projects? Well, it's actually for general open source project is to go to conferences, meetup, university events, whatever. Luboš is again raising hands, so
I feel like this is something that people will find interesting. So if you would go back to reviews, um, did you
yes.
cover the openSUSE factory and how changes get in and maybe then to SLE and so on? So like to me, when I came to openSUSE, the review system is kind of interesting. Like SLE is enforcing 4 eyes review. That means the release manager, auto build team, they have to check on every change. But the fact that we are actually following the factory first policy, right? Is that before the change actually gets to SLE, it's already pre-approved by many people, like the maintainer, just like in this case that you've seen. The auto build team actually has to check it as well. So it's it was impressive, at least like, first 2 weeks when I was in SUSE, I was like, whoa, this is pretty neat. Actually, somebody really goes through these changes and checks it all. Some other companies, they just leave it on the maintainer, but there is the 4 eyes review and so on. So that was super interesting to me when I joined SUSE.
Yeah, let's actually show quickly some example. Here is a submission for MariaDB from its Devel project server database MariaDB to openSUSE Factory. It's a version update to 10.5.10 by community member Ferdinand Thiessen. It was, but not in that interesting change. It was actually submitted by me because the maintainer Christina actually was too busy with the preparation of this open house event. So I, as a Devel project maintainer, took over and accepted it. And now it's on the way to enter factory. So first there was some review by trivial review bot that checked that it's building. Then there was a legal review, in this case probably fully automated, where another bot checked if the sources are matching some predefined and approved strings. If not, it would raise it for actually manual review by actual human lawyer. But if the changes are trivial, the bot can actually detect that it's okay to approve it and so on. Next step is that openSUSE factory staging gets involved. Staging is a project where some of part of the factory is rebuilt and tested in OpenQA. And if it's accepted, then it's forwarded to the submission is actually forwarded to factory itself. But there is some automated testing done even before the submission is accepted, and this actually prevents things that are obviously broken from entering. Usually things are tested in the specs of things, because in ideal world we would test each submission independently, but it would be extremely resource consuming. So we have these staging projects that have letters or numbers as identifiers, And we all usually there are things that are entering together, like there is a special staging project for GNOME stuff, special staging projects for KDE stuff, special staging projects for base systems, and so on. And they each get some extra extensive or somehow extensive testing in OpenQA before they are accepted further. And there is also a manual review by some member of the openSUSE factory review team. In this case, it's again Dimstar, Dominic Loenberg, the openSUSE release manager, who accepted the manual review 4 hours ago. So now it's just waiting for openSUSE factory staging F, which is probably waiting for testing to be finished, or it's now rebuilding because some new packages were accepted to it, so it kind of got restarted. But it will eventually get there. Saying this, I will stop screen sharing because we are almost out of time. And if we have some questions in the chat, I will read them. AI, yeah, no questions so far. And yeah, actually the legal review, this is pretty interesting topic because this is like the doing the legal review automatically is very tricky because a lot of you are basically matching strings in all the text you can extract from the package. But the tricky thing is that very often software authors or contributors are doing some small changes. For example, you have general public license, GPL version 2.0. And there are plenty of ways this is written. Some people write general public license 2.0. Some people write GPL 2.0. There is actually some notion like SPDX for correct abbreviation of licenses, but there is a lot of creativity among people how they express themselves. So there are like hundreds of possible strings how to just label GPL version 2.0 exact license. And this is one of the parts of the legal DB that we are using for this automated review, is that there is a huge database of possible or acceptable strings that were verified by someone.